something that it's related to the war that is happening right now between Iran and the United States. Something that has happened before the war happening. It was the case of Charlie Kirk. We various times you and I talk about it. What has happened? What were the the real? What was the reality of the shooting? The evidence, everything. But today we've learned from Daily Mail is mentioning that the bullet used to kill Charlie Kirk didn't match the rifle that they say used by Tyler Robinson. And how is that? It's so amazing to see Cash Patel going various times. He was asked if he's sure that the Tyler Robinson did that. He said that they're sure. There are a lot of evidence. What do you make of what's going on with the case of Charlie Kirk? We know Charlie Kirk was against the war with Iran. He did everything before this disaster, that so-called the war on Iran happening. And he's not living on this planet right now. He's passed away. What do you make of what's going on?
As you know from talking with Larry Johnson and probably others too, and I know from talking with both Larry and Ray McGovern and others, we never thought that this was properly presented. That is to say, we didn't think the shooter was the shooter, and we didn't think the rifle was the rifle, and we didn't think the bullet was the bullet. I don't know if these allegations here are bringing this to the surface again and bringing it up legitimately and accurately or not. But I won't change my view, having heard the experts' views and knowing something about rifles myself. There's no way this guy shot Charlie Kirk. And he certainly didn't shoot him from the position they're asserting he shot him from. And the rifle, in all of its configurations, if you will, is impossible to have been the launcher of the round that killed him. So the question is, what are they hiding? And who are they hiding?
Yeah. And do you think that this administration would reveal what really happened? Because so far they didn't inform the public opinion. They didn't inform the media what has happened behind the scene, what were the evidence through which Cash Patel, for example, said this guy killed Charlie Kirk, because the evidence is all against him. What were the evidence? What were those documents against him? So far, we haven't seen. Did you see any sort of document against this guy?
No, I have seen nothing that proves to me that he was the shooter. And I think we're looking at a similar set of circumstances to those that existed around a much more, if you will, important killing. John Kennedy in Dallas in 1963. And that took a long time, and a commission, badly flawed that it was, ultimately flawed in reality, and packed as it was. But it took a lot of emphasis and a lot of people to finally determine the nature of the lie that was going to be told the nation. I should say lies, plural, that were going to be told the nation. And the people who would participate in that lying, from Earl Warren, the former Chief Justice, who was the head of the commission, all the way down to individuals whose stories, not with their acknowledgement or their complicity, were reversed, such as the team that did the first autopsy in Dallas. All to say that that was a very, very closely scrutinized process, not closely enough, as it turns out, but it was, and it was public, and it was done in front of the Klieg lights, if you will. Even though it was a falsification of the evidence, they went to some effort to do that. They've done nothing with this. Now you could say, well, Charlie Kirk wasn't a very important character. I'd say he was pretty important. I think that some of the things he said were absolutely vile. Didn't like him at all. But when he began to shift, it was clear that he got a lot of people irritated, a lot of people very, very mad, particularly Jewish American billionaires. He got them particularly mad. So, the next conclusion is, as you went and figured out who probably shot John Kennedy, CIA, military, disgruntled Cubans, mafia, you take your pick. It probably was a conspiracy amongst them all. But this is a little different because it's not that public and it's not that scrutinized. It's simply Kash Patel and maybe some other people at the FBI. I don't even know how many people are even in on the investigation. So why is it taking so long to produce evidence that people could believe? Are we going to have a commission? Are we going to have to get Kash Patel out and beat the truth out of him? Does Kash Patel even know? Does he have a clue? I suspect he has the vaguest idea of who killed Charlie Kirk, not the vaguest idea. Now they don't want to tell Trump that either. They don't want to tell the American people that because it expresses their incompetence. But I don't think they have a clue who killed him. But I have some clues as to who I think might have killed him. That's for sure. And it ain't that guy with that rifle.
Yeah.
It's Epstein in a small capsule, right? It doesn't impact Trump. It doesn't impact any of the Congress. It doesn't impact any of these important people, posh people. It's just Charlie Kirk. If it were more people, they'd probably be hiding it a little more adroitly and they'd probably be manufacturing more evidence and so forth. But since it's just Charlie Kirk out there, who cares? So why go speedily? Why go accurately? Why even try to do anything other than railroad someone? But it's going to be increasingly difficult to railroad this guy because there's so many people out there like Larry Johnson and others who know it's a lie.
And many things has happened since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which was so strange. One of them was the way that Donald Trump was asked, if you remember, in White House, he was asked, how do you feel about Charlie Kirk? He said, about the assassination of Charlie. He said, hey, it's good. Look at that building. This beautiful building that we are,
Well, look at the way he's treating. Have you heard what he says?
Changed the whole tone, yeah.
About the head of the National Counterterrorism Center, the number 2 guy, I guess, in the hierarchy at the ODNI. He didn't know him. I didn't know him. I gave him a job. Well, I was, I thought he was a pretty good guy. I gave him a job, but he's left now. I think he's wrong. Well, you listen to him talk. Listen to the guy talk and tell about the telephone conversation he had with Donald Trump, telling him he was going to leave. The conversation Trump had with him in response to that, totally opposite. Trump wants you to think that he didn't even know this guy, and it's just inconsequential that he left. And he's wrong about the Iran war. He should have left if you felt that way, And this guy's saying, well, I had a long telephone call with the president, and I talked to him about what I was feeling and everything. And we went back and forth for a while. Who's telling the truth? I put my money on the other guy, not the president, because he's a proverbial liar.
Today, Larry, we had the briefing of Pete Hegseth together with General Kane, and both of them have mentioned.
Wait a minute, just 1 second. I have a new analogy for you.
Yeah.
We've been searching at Eisenhower Media Network for, analogies, historical analogies. Is it Hitler? Is it Caligula? Is it Nero? All these guys. No, those are all false. The analogy is clear. You may not remember this. I'll test you. I see a few gray hairs. Maybe you do remember. This is the Sith Lord and Darth Vader. Trump is the Sith Lord and Hegseth is Darth Vader. He's Darth Vader without the redeeming feature of once being a Jedi Knight, which you may recall if you do know the movie, you know that he turns out to be halfway decent in the end because the Jedi Knight in him comes out. But that Pete Hegseth does not have that redemptive feature. He is Darth Vader and Trump is the Sith Lord and we are the Empire. And all the rest of the people in the world are Han Solo's rebel force and they're going to attack and kill us. That's the analogy. Straight out of Hollywood.
Yeah. One of the
I'm serious. And these kids look at me like they don't even know who Han Solo is, or who Darth Vader is, or who the Sith Lord is.
yeah.
What are you talking about? Star Wars. What's Star Wars? Are you talking about Game of Thrones?
Yeah, these are Larry. One of the arguments on the part of Pete Hegseth and General Kane was that they have hit the Iranian production, military industrial complex, the way that they cannot produce more weapons, more missiles, more drones. That's why the number of missiles and drones are drastically reducing as time goes by. Here is, the information, the graph of IRGC. It shows from March 11th to March 29th. The number of the blue line, it shows the number of drones, and the red line shows the number of missiles. Even the number of missiles, you see, yes, the day before yesterday, it was 40, and it's all, somehow the highest number of missiles being shoot, yes, the day before yesterday, and the number of drones are going up and down, but they're pursuing the same sort of trajectory. Do they really have any sort of information, or they're trying to manipulate without providing robust numbers to the public opinion? Because when you say something, you have to put something out to show it, but they're making some sort of claim that doesn't get to the reality of what's going on.
This administration has given a new name to lying and deceit. There's no question about it. Led by the chief man. He's the biggest liar of them all. I got a list, a partial list at least, and I think it's pretty valid, of what I would call second tier targeting. The first tier they've already struck, and rather devastatingly. Extraordinary accuracy, extraordinary devastation. Bahrain, for example, has no refinement capacity left. That was the oldest, largest refinery in the Gulf. It's destroyed now. I was talking to some people yesterday about what that means. Do they have to go in and snake out the actual piping and everything now? And they were saying, yeah, they got to start from ground zero and go all over again for construction. A huge fortune it's going to cost them if they want to do it. So they were devastatingly accurate, and they were devastating in terms of their array of targets and what I call the first tier of extracurricular missiles. In other words, not at Iran, not at Israel. Missiles not shot at Israel, shot at Erbil, shot at Prince Sultan, shot at other targets. So much effectiveness in Iran or in Iraq, for example, that we have gone down to emergency personnel only at our embassy in Baghdad. So I got to look at this second tier, which I think is probably pretty accurate. This is what they're going to hit if the states that have U.S. facilities there continue to host those facilities, and those facilities continue to be used in attacks on Iran. A reasonable proposition. If they hit this second tier of targets with the devastation that they hit the first tier of targets, we go into global recession for sure, and potentially global depression, because it is going to wreck the world economy. Not just Southwest Asia, but the world's economy. The one country that might be somewhat insulated from this and actually benefit from it is, of course, Russia, because of the price of oil and such. But even they are going to be impacted by other shortages, and the rest of the world, including the Western Hemisphere, big time, are going to be majorly impacted by the shortages, as are some of our allies in the East, like Taiwan, who are going to be incapable of working through this without some real help, because of helium shortage, because of other material for chip making shortages, and ultimately because of no oil. If Iran is saying, okay, China, your ships can get through, but Taiwan, your ships can't, that's it. And then if the Houthis are really going to try to seal off the Red Sea again, and it wouldn't take much effort there to do that, because we saw the first time around, all it takes is really frightening the insurers and frightening the ship companies. We're in for trouble. We're in for big trouble. And I don't see any recognition of this looming disaster on the part of any of the administration. Not a single one of them seems to be seized with what they're doing to the world economy. Now, I may be wrong, and they may back up any moment here and stop what they're doing, maybe even call off this ground operation, whatever it's going to be. But I don't see any sign of that. And therefore, I don't see any sign that they recognize the perilous ground upon which they're walking. And this idea of B-52s going in and carpet bombing, well, what do you think is going to happen when the first B-52 hurtles to earth in flame? This is not good, Nima. It's not good for anybody. It's not good for Iran to keep on being pummeled like this, but it's not good for the world. I won't even count the empire led by Donald Trump. But it's not good for the world what we're going to do. We're going to plunge it into economic distress that might be years in the mending.
Larry,
I don't blame the Iranians. If they execute that second tier of targets, I don't blame them. I don't blame them. You know, they had shot Erbil 2 or 3 times before. They had sent drones, they'd sent a missile or 2 or whatever, just to let the Israelis and the Brits know that they knew they were there. Underground intelligence facility. Well, this time they gave them more than just a warning that they were there. They knew they were there. I mean, they wiped them out virtually. Do that to everything else that they have on this second list of targets. It's Saudi Arabia, it's the pipelines, it's the Ras Tanura type facilities that deliver 8 to 12 billion barrels a day of oil. I mean, don't even talk about getting ships out of the Strait of Hormuz. You won't have any oil to put on the ships, nor any infrastructure to generate any more oil. We're talking a real disaster if we move forward with this and the Iranians are forced to execute that second set of targets.
We know that Friday is holiday, and you have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If they want to invade Iran, want to capture one of these islands in the Persian Gulf close to the Strait of Hormuz, it's going to be on this Friday. It's because
Good Friday.
Yeah.
Pete Hicks says Good Friday.
Yeah.
Jedi Knight, Darth Vader. I'm going to attack them on my best holiday. God's going to help me.
He just got back from CENTCOM and he said that they say the only thing that they're asking us to do, give us more bombs. He said that during this briefing. But Larry, here is what Eric Prince, the founder of Blackwater, one of the contractors, said about invading Iran.
The Wagner Group equivalent in the empire.
The Karg Island is going to be mighty thin. Have to cycle, and that's assuming you don't have any losses from maintenance. So yeah, your initial assault into Karg Island is going to be mighty thin because those aircraft have to cycle, and that's assuming you don't have any losses from maintenance or from missiles. Do you do a mass drop of the 82nd on the Karg Island? Again, that's pretty sporty, and an airborne invasion in a place that has thousands and thousands of missiles. Not to mention, the Iranians have been learning. They've certainly been paying attention to modern drone warfare and have certainly implemented FPVs down to the squad level. I mean, you see videos of the Israelis in southern Lebanon losing tanks, losing armored personnel carriers to the same FPVs that the Russians have been using with great effect in Ukraine. So it is, again, a fight against Iran. They're not Arabs. They're Aryans. They are a highly intelligent, highly skilled warfighters, and it would not be the pushover by comparison that you see of the Iraqi army that worked.
Yeah,
the truth hurts. The truth hurts. He's right. He's right. I don't know that they're planning that, because I have to give, I think I told you what I told Colin Powell one time, and I walked in his office and I was in a little bit of a peak, and I said, let's never make an Air Force officer chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff again. And he knew what I was saying, because they don't know anything about ground warfare. They know nothing about ground warfare. And so Kane, of course, is that. But he's got to have some Army generals who aren't just chicken shit cowards. They've got to be telling him, airborne operation on Carg Island? Are you kidding me? You want to get 3,000 people killed before they even hit the ground? You want to get them plummeting to the earth with their parachutes burning? I'm sorry. This isn't going to work. And as he was suggesting there with the Osprey, you know what the Marines call the Osprey? The flying death trap. One Marine said to me, would I be within my rights, Colonel, if I were embarking on an Osprey for a training mission and I refused to get on it? I didn't know how to answer him. Now, I have to say that it doesn't have any worse record than some of the couple of 3 aircraft in the past 50 years have developed in terms of killing people, bad records, in other words. But it does have a consistency and a particular problem with the rotation from forward flight to hovering flight and back again with that clutch that I think everybody knows about. And so I think every Marine who gets on an Osprey takes a moment and says to Jesus or whatever, Muhammad, whatever, please let me live through this flight. This is not an aircraft that I'd want to go to combat in like this, where it's so crucial that everything be perfectly timed, everything be exactly the right altitude, the right airspeed, the exact right landing profile, and so forth, because you are going to be interdicted majorly, if by nothing else than drones, but certainly probably by some pretty powerful missiles too. So you're asking, Trump is asking to kill a lot of Americans for no reason whatsoever. As one Air Force sergeant said to me recently in an email, why are we doing this, Colonel? They present no threat to us. So why are we doing this? That question is probably making its way through a lot of the ranks too. In addition to the religious business and everything, there are probably a lot of people who are just sitting there asking themselves, why are we doing this? Not the pilots who are dropping the bombs and everything. That's one thing that I don't like about Air Force officers being chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They don't understand the ground. They only understand the technology that releases the bomb and the pictures and the happy video that show them the bomb hitting. They don't understand what's happening after the bomb hits. They don't understand ground warfare. They don't understand what it is to be under that bomb. And that's bad. That's bad. Look at the IDF Air Force, bloodthirstiest people on the face of the earth. Look at what they're doing in Lebanon. Bombing hotels, bombing restaurants, bombing dry cleaners, bombing old women, bombing old men, bombing babies in their carriages. That's what the IDF is good at. That's what they do. That's what air forces do. Bloodthirsty air forces. Soldiers know better. Marines know better. And this is terrible to hurl them into this conflict. It's just terrible. And I feel for all of them. Yeah. Not to mention the Iranians under the bombs. I mean, did you hear Arachi in front of the UN emergency panel on Manab School? He told it like it was. He said, we are evil. We are evil. We torpedo diplomacy, not once, but twice. He used that English word, torpedo. We torpedoed diplomacy twice. In the middle of diplomacy, we bomb people. Palestine started it all, he said. Palestine is the issue. It started it all. And he's right. And Bibi's still in there. Naftali Bennett is angry with Bibi because he's not killing the Palestinians fast enough.
Yeah. Larry, but the reality is that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and many other people around Donald Trump are making money out of these wars.
Yes.
Financial Times reported that Pete Hexet's broker looked to buy defense fund before before the attack on Iran. These guys are making a lot of money.
Yeah. Look at Mark Wayne Mullen. Mark Wayne Mullen didn't wait to be a senator to make $1 million plus. He made it as he waltzed into the Congress. He was already making money because he was already plugged into the Pelosi, the insider trading. I mean, you sometimes have a hard time defending America anymore. And then that report that's coming out, have you heard about the report that has been very carefully put together by, I guess, Brown University and some others? Since 2000, we have killed 38 million people with our sanctions. 38 million people, wow. Half of whom are children, women. 38 million people. Add into that Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia. I'd bet our toll is over Joseph Stalin's, over Mao Zedong's, and probably over Hitler's in terms of people the empire has killed. This is unconscionable. And Arachi was absolutely right in his damnation of this empire. I don't care what anybody thinks about Iran. You can think it's the most evil Islamic theocracy on the face of the earth. It does not hold a candle to the American empire.
Yeah. Actually, Pete Hexet was bragging today that how precise are the attacks on Iran, and we are hitting, strategic points in strategic locations in Iran. But the reality is, Larry, that they're attacking pharmaceutical companies, mostly producing medicine for
Arachi listed it
for the people. Yeah,
he listed it. Same thing they're doing in Cuba. I saw the what's happened to Cuba yesterday in aggregate. It's horrible. One of the best healthcare systems on the face of the earth. I know. I toured their hospitals. I toured their Hermanos Brigada. I toured their what John Bolton called a chemical facility. It was a bio-level 3 facility that actually made really good medicines. They wiped out Japanese encephalitis completely, wiped it out on the island. They did it all by themselves. Maybe they were helped a little by the Brazilians, but mostly they did it by themselves. They had
Larry, we have a lot of Cuban, doctors here in Brazil. They're amazing. They're amazing.
And they're just broken now. They're broken. Now, this Russian tanker may give them a little bit of life. I hope so, because it's got a lot of energy on it, if you will, in terms of they were doing things like taking babies off respirators because they had to conserve the power, and then hoping that when the power came back for an hour or two, the baby would not be dead.